My sister committed bank fraud to steal from me, but my parents blamed me for turning her in. So I told them, if she breaks the law again, call the authorities. I'm Jack, a 30-year-old man, and anyone who knows me would say I've been independent since I was 18. I funded my own education, worked tirelessly, and never relied on my parents for help. Yet somehow that doesn't grant me peace. Instead, it makes me the family's default fixer for every problem. It all started with an unexpected call from my mother. My mom, Carol, isn't the type to call just to chat about my day or ask what I had for breakfast. When her name pops up on my phone, it's a red flag that something's wrong, and she expects me to sort it out. So, when I saw her call, I braced myself for bad news. I answered, and she dove straight into awkward small talk, which isn't her style. "Hey, Jack, how's work? Still in finance?" she asked, as if she hadn't ignored my career for years. I humored her, curious about what was coming. "Yeah, Mom, still in finance. What's going on?" That's when she hit me with it. "Your sister's in trouble." I wish I could say I was shocked, but I wasn't. My sister, Karen, 27, has a knack for creating chaos and expecting others to clean it up. Her messes aren't just minor inconveniences, they're full-blown catastrophes that somehow always land on me. Like the time she took my car without asking and crashed it while texting. She called me in a panic, crying about not knowing what to do. Like a fool, I dropped everything to help. I handled the insurance, paid the deductible, and let her off the hook because she swore it wouldn't happen again. But it did. Or the time she convinced me to co-sign her apartment lease because she just needed a little help getting started. 3 months later, she stopped paying rent, dodged the landlord, and left me to deal with the fallout. I spent months fixing my credit while she moved back in with our parents, acting like it was no big deal. Karen doesn't just mess up, she never faces the consequences. Someone, usually me, always has to step in while she plays the victim. And the worst part? She never shows gratitude. It's like she thinks the world owes her a safety net. So when Mom called about Karen's latest trouble, I didn't feel sympathy or worry. I was exhausted from being pulled into her chaos, tired of bearing the weight of her recklessness. Honestly, I was surprised it took this long for something major to happen. I sighed, dreading what was coming. "What kind of trouble?" I asked, not because I wanted to help, but because I needed to know how bad this one would be. Then she dropped the bomb. Karen had racked up $43,500 in debt. $43,000? I had to repeat it in my head to process it. How does someone even get there? Apparently, she'd spent money she didn't have. Again. But this time, it wasn't just credit card companies. She'd borrowed from some dangerous people, the kind you don't ignore when the bills pile up. Now they were after her. And Mom's brilliant solution? Me, of course. Why wouldn't it be? In her eyes, I'm the successful one, the responsible sibling, the guy who can always be counted on to fix the unfixable. It didn't matter that Karen caused this. The issue wasn't her choices. It was my refusal to help. "You need to help her," she said, like my role as the family bank was already decided. I paused, letting it sink in. "How am I supposed to help?" I asked. "You've done so well, Jack. You can pay it off for her," she said casually, like she was asking me to grab coffee. I let out a sharp laugh, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe her nerve. "Mom, I didn't borrow that money. Why is this my problem?" The silence that followed was heavy. Like she was stunned I'd said no. Then she went into full guilt trip mode. "She's your sister. Family helps family. Do you want her to get hurt? Is that what you want?" Her words came fast, almost desperate, as if my refusal was the real crime, not Karen's actions. I took a deep breath, trying not to snap. "Mom, I've helped her before, countless times. And what does she do? Blows it on designer clothes, lavish trips, and who knows what else. She never takes responsibility because you and Dad always bail her out. I'm not doing it this time." But logic didn't land. "She's struggling, Jack," she shot back. She's not like you. She's not strong enough to handle this. Struggling? I repeated. She's reckless. She spends money she doesn't have, and now she's in trouble with shady people. Instead of facing it, she expects me to swoop in and fix it. Again. She's your sister, Mom snapped. Family looks out for each other. No, Mom, I said, my voice steady. Family doesn't exploit each other. This isn't me abandoning Karen. It's me refusing to enable her bad choices. She wasn't having it. Do you want her to get hurt, Jack? Do you want that on your conscience? Look, I'm not heartless. I don't want anything bad to happen to Karen. But she's an adult, a 27-year-old who knew exactly what she was doing when she borrowed that money. I told Mom as much, but she wouldn't hear it. She's not as strong as you, Jack, she said. You've always had it together. She hasn't. You can afford to help. It's the least you can do after all we've done for you, I snapped back. Done for me? Like what? Charging me rent the second I turned 18? Refusing to help with college? Yeah, thanks for all that support, Mom. She went quiet for a moment, but then came back swinging. If you don't help, we'll have no choice but to cut you off. I laughed. Cut me off from what? You don't support me. I've been on my own for over a decade. Your threats don't work. With that, I hung up. After that, they went silent. I wish I could say that was the end, but it was just the start. The quiet didn't last. I underestimated my mother's persistence when she wants something. When I shut her and my father down, they switched tactics. If direct demands didn't work, they'd guilt me into submission. And they went all in. At first, it was simple texts. I don't understand how you can let your sister suffer. Then, as days passed, they got dramatic. Do you know the kind of people Karen's dealing with? They're dangerous, Jack. I can't sleep worrying about her. I ignored them at first, too drained to engage with the manipulation. But they kept coming. Mom stepped it up with voicemails, her voice trembling like she was fighting tears, though I knew better. Jack, she said in one, Karen might not survive this if you don't help. I can't live with myself if something happens to her. It was a masterclass in emotional blackmail. If there were awards for guilt tripping, she'd have a trophy case by now. Then my father, Edward, got involved. He's usually a bystander in family drama, but not this time. His voicemail started calm. Hey, Jack, just checking in. But then it shifted. Look, I know your mom can be intense, but this is serious. Karen's in deep and we can't fix this without you. You've always been the reliable one. Don't let us down now. That line, the reliable one, grated on me. I've spent my life being reliable, and all it's gotten me is more burdens and zero appreciation. Reliable doesn't mean doormat. They didn't get the memo. But the guilt campaign didn't stop there. They roped in extended family from who knows where. Suddenly, I got a call from my Uncle Greg, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. He acted like we were old pals. Hey, Jack, long time no talk. How's life? I knew why he was calling, but I let him ramble before he got to it. You know, family matters, he said in that overly sincere tone people use when they're about to say something you won't like. Karen's struggling. We all hit rough patches, and sometimes we need help. Greg, I cut in. Did Mom put you up to this? He gave a nervous laugh, caught. Well, she might have mentioned it. I didn't let him finish. Look, I appreciate the call, but I'm not paying Karen's debt. It's not my responsibility. You'd think that would end it, but no. The next day, it was Aunt Janice, then Cousin Emily. They all recited the same script. Karen's in trouble. She needs help. You're the only one who can save her. I don't get why they're all so worried about Karen. She's not a helpless kid who made an honest mistake. She's an adult who spends money like it's play money and acts shocked when the consequences hit. Worse, none of them even tried to see my side. When I said I wasn't willing to fork over $43,500 for someone else's mistakes, they acted like I was speaking gibberish. But she's your sister, they'd say, as if that magically fixed everything. The worst part? The smear campaign. My mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided that if guilt didn't work, she'd turn the family against me. She started telling everyone in the family group chat, which I'd long since left, that I was selfish, ungrateful, and a total jerk. According to her, I'd forgotten my roots and was too busy with my fancy city life to care about my family. I found out when my cousin Caleb called. He's one of the few relatives I trust. "Dude," he said, "Carol's been talking serious trash about you. She told Aunt Janice you said Karen deserves whatever happens to her." I was livid, not because I cared about Janice's opinion, but because Mom was lying to paint herself as the victim. I told Caleb the truth, and he believed me. "Yeah, I figured she was exaggerating," he said. "It's just messy, man." Messy doesn't even cover it. But then Karen decided to jump into the chaos herself. Until then, she'd been silent. No texts, no calls. I thought maybe she was ashamed for once. Turns out she was just biding her time. And when she struck, it wasn't subtle. She texted me one night, not with a plea, but an accusation. "I can't believe how selfish you're being, Jack. You know I'm in serious trouble and you're just sitting there doing nothing. You're supposed to be my brother." Selfish. That was rich coming from her. Karen's entire life has been a string of bad choices with someone else mopping up the mess. I didn't reply. It didn't deserve a response. The next morning, she upped the stakes. "You have the money. Stop acting like it's a big deal. Just pay it off and I'll pay you back when I can." Like that was a reasonable plan. As if I were the unreasonable one for not handing over $43,500 to fix her mess again. I didn't respond. That didn't sit well with her. She went into full meltdown mode, sending long, rambling texts about how I was abandoning her and how I'd never understand her struggles. Then she hit me with, "Mom and Dad always said you'd come around eventually." Guess they were wrong. That line hit differently. Not because it made me rethink anything, but because it confirmed what I'd always suspected. This wasn't just Karen being reckless. My parents had been enabling her, convincing her I'd always be there to fix her disasters. I'd had enough. I stopped answering texts, ignored calls, and focused on my own life. Just when I thought they couldn't stoop lower with their guilt trips and smear campaigns, I realized I'd underestimated them. My parents and Karen had played every trick in the book, or so I thought. They had one final move, and it shattered any illusion I had about them respecting boundaries. I got a call from my bank, and everything spiraled into chaos. The bank's fraud department flagged suspicious activity on my account. Someone had tried to access it with forged documents that didn't match their information. They attempted to change my contact details and withdraw funds. But the system caught it and blocked the transaction. The bank couldn't give specifics, but hinted it was someone close to me. Someone close. I didn't need to guess. I knew. Karen. Who else could it be? The timing was too perfect. She'd just texted about her desperate situation, and when I didn't budge, this happened. I was furious. Forging documents to access my account? That's not just desperate, it's criminal. I couldn't let it slide. That night, I drove to Karen's place, my anger barely contained. I didn't call ahead. I was done playing nice. When she opened the door, she snapped, "What are you doing here?" "You tried to steal from me," I said, cutting to the chase. Her face flickered for a moment before she crossed her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." The nerve. "Don't play dumb, Karen," I said. "The bank flagged your stunt. They told me someone forged documents to get into my account. Do you realize how serious that is?" She gave an exaggerated sigh, like I was overreacting. "Oh, relax, Jack. It's not like I actually got anything." I blinked, stunned at how casually she brushed it off. "Relax? You're seriously justifying this by saying you failed? You tried to commit fraud, Karen? That's a crime?" She shrugged, unfazed. "What else was I supposed to do? You left me no choice. You wouldn't help when I needed it." I couldn't believe it. No choice? Karen, you had every choice. You could have taken responsibility, owned your mistakes, and figured out a way to fix this. Instead, you thought stealing from me was the answer. She glared. Don't act all high and mighty. Mom and Dad said you'd never let me suffer. They told me you'd come around if I pushed hard enough. I just had to wait out your little tantrum. I stood there, floored. Little tantrum? It wasn't frustration in my chest. It was rage. This wasn't just Karen being careless. It was years of my parents enabling her, feeding her delusions, and treating me like I existed to clean up her messes. Unbelievable, I muttered, more to myself than her. Do you even realize what you've done, Karen? You crossed a line. She rolled her eyes, doubling down. I'm not the villain here, Jack. You are. You've turned your back on your family. If you'd helped me from the start, none of this would have happened. That was it. The final straw. Until then, she'd been silent. No texts, no calls. I thought maybe she was ashamed for once. Turns out she was just biding her time. And when she struck, it wasn't subtle. She texted me one night, not with a plea, but an accusation. I can't believe how selfish you're being, Jack. You know I'm in serious trouble, and you're just sitting there doing nothing. You're supposed to be my brother. Selfish. That was rich coming from her. Karen's entire life has been a string of bad choices with someone else mopping up the mess. I didn't reply. It didn't deserve a response. The next morning, she upped the stakes. You have the money. The next day, my mother called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Jack, Karen told me what happened. I can't believe you threatened her like that. She's struggling and you're making it worse. You should be ashamed. I replayed it 3 times to make sure I'd heard right. Karen tried to steal from me and I was the bad guy? It was so absurd I didn't respond. What was the point? They weren't going to listen, but I wasn't letting it go. I called my bank and had them lock down my account. New passwords, 2-factor authentication, the works. I wasn't giving Karen or anyone else another shot at my finances. For a few days, it was quiet. Too quiet. But I know my parents. They don't take no for an answer, not even after 100 rejections. So when I got home from work a few days later and saw their car in my driveway, I wasn't shocked. Annoyed? Yes. Surprised? No. I took a deep breath, parked behind them, and sat in my car for a moment to brace myself. I knew they weren't there for a friendly chat or to apologize. This was another round of guilt, manipulation, and emotional blackmail. I was already exhausted thinking about it. When I got out, my mother was waiting by the front door, looking ready to lecture. My father stared at the ground like he'd rather be anywhere else. We need to talk, Mom said as I approached. I don't think we do, I replied. Everything's been said. Of course, she ignored me. This nonsense has gone on long enough. We're your parents. Karen's your sister. This isn't how families act. I unlocked the door and went inside, knowing she'd follow. She did, with Dad trailing like a reluctant shadow. You're just going to walk away while we're talking? Mom asked. No. I'm going inside my house so I don't have to stand outside listening to more of your nonsense, I said. If you're going to lecture me, at least do it where I'm comfortable. She didn't like my tone, but I didn't care. They'd crossed every boundary I'd set, so why pretend I was okay with it? Mom launched into her usual spiel. Jack, you need to stop this stubbornness. Karen's struggling, and it's your duty as her brother to help. She's family. Yeah, family. I get it, I said. So let me tell you about family, Mom. Family doesn't lie, steal, or manipulate to get their way. Family doesn't expect one person to sacrifice everything while someone else skates through life without consequences. So don't lecture me about family. My father finally spoke. This isn't about taking sides, Jack. It's about fixing things. You're the only one who can. I laughed bitterly. Fix things? You mean pay off Karen's debt? Cover for her fraud attempt? Let her get away with everything like always? No thanks. I'm done fixing her messes. She's your sister, Mom said, her voice rising. Do you know what it'll do to her if something happens? How will you live with yourself? And how do you live with yourselves? I shot back. You've spent her whole life enabling her, making excuses, and throwing me under the bus when it suits you. You created this mess, not me. Don't try to guilt me into cleaning it up. Mom's face turned red. I thought she might explode. If you won't help, we'll have no choice but to cut ties with you. No holidays, no family gatherings, nothing. I stared at her, wondering if she thought that was a threat. Mom, I've been on my own my whole life. Cutting me off is like firing someone who already quit. She opened her mouth to argue, but Dad stopped her. Carol, stop. This isn't helping. He turned to me, his expression softer. Jack, we just want what's best for everyone. Karen's made mistakes, but she's family. Can't you meet us halfway? I couldn't take it anymore. Do you even hear yourselves? You're asking me to pay $43,500 for someone else's mistakes. How is that halfway? What's Karen contributing to this so-called compromise? My anger was boiling over, my thoughts racing with every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd stepped up when they wouldn't, every moment they put Karen first. I pushed off the counter and walked to the door, my movements deliberate. No shouting, no arguing. They didn't deserve that much energy from me. I opened the door wide and said, "Get out." Mom blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "Get out," I repeated. "This conversation is done. You're not guilting me into paying Karen's debt, and you're not manipulating me into feeling bad about it. Unless you have something useful to say, leave." Mom looked like she wanted to fight, but Dad gently took her arm. "Come on, Carol, let's go." She glared at me as she passed, her words dripping with venom. "You'll regret this, Jack. Mark my words." I shut the door behind them and stood there. Silence. Finally, silence. But it didn't last. The whole ordeal kept nagging at me, and against my better judgment, I decided to find out what was happening with Karen. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I just needed to know how bad things had gotten. I reached out to a mutual friend who still talked to her, hoping for some clarity. "What's up with Karen?" I asked. "I haven't heard anything since." "Oh, you haven't heard," they said without hesitation. "It's bad. The people she owes money to aren't playing around. They trashed her car, smashed windows, slashed tires, the works. She's freaking out, saying she doesn't feel safe." I should have felt sympathy or concern, but I just felt drained. She'd put herself in this situation, and now she was facing the consequences. Of course, I knew this would only mean more pressure from my parents to step in and save her. For a few days, I heard nothing from Karen or my parents, just silence. It felt odd, like the calm before a storm, and sure enough, the storm hit. A letter from a lawyer. When I opened it, I couldn't believe my eyes. My parents were threatening to sue me, claiming I had a moral obligation to support my family. They wanted me to pay Karen's debt and were ready to take me to court over it. I couldn't believe it. After everything they'd done, they were willing to go this far. Part of me wanted to laugh at how absurd it was, but mostly I felt numb. This wasn't a family anymore. It was a war zone, and I was done fighting. The audacity was almost impressive. My own parents were threatening legal action because I wouldn't clean up Karen's $43,500 mess. It was like they'd abandoned any pretense of family in favor of outright hostility. I didn't have to think twice about my next step. I called my lawyer, who has a great sense of humor. When I explained the situation, he laughed and said, "Jack, they've got nothing. Let them file. It'll get tossed out of court." Their threat didn't materialize, but it was a stark reminder of how toxic they'd become, solidifying my resolve to cut contact. They'd crossed every line, and I couldn't keep the door open even a sliver. I'd held on to a faint hope that we could salvage something, but this was the end. I blocked my parents' numbers that day. No calls, texts, or voicemails. I went through my social media and blocked them there too. I did the same for Karen. If they were going to treat me like an enemy, I'd treat them like strangers. I also reached out to extended family to set the record straight. I knew my parents would spin the story to make me the villain, and I wasn't letting them get away with it. I called Caleb, one of the few relatives I trust, and laid it all out. "Dude," he said when I finished, "that's insane. They seriously tried to sue you?" "Not yet," I said, "but they're threatening to. I wanted you to hear the truth because I know they'll spread lies." "Don't worry," Caleb said. "I've got your back. And honestly, good for you for cutting them off. They sound toxic as hell." That gave me the courage to contact a few other relatives. Some, like Caleb, were supportive, but others weren't. Aunt Janice, for instance, was firmly on Mom's side. "Jack, they're your parents," she said, as if that excused everything. "You can't just walk away from them." "Yes, I can," I said firmly. "And I have. They've crossed every line, and I'm not letting them drag me down." Janice thought I was a disappointment. "Family is family, Jack," she said. "You'll regret this someday." "Maybe," I replied, not meaning it, "but for now I'm choosing peace." Peace lasted a few days. About a week after blocking them, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jack?" My mother's voice, sharp and angry. "You blocked me?" I sighed, already regretting picking up. "Yes, Mom, I blocked you." "Why?" Why would you do that? She demanded as if it wasn't obvious. Because I'm done, I said. Done with the manipulation, the guilt, the lies, the demands, done with it all. She scoffed. You're being ridiculous. You think you can just cut us out of your life? Yes, I said simply. I can. And I have. She tried to argue, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and cruel, as always. But I didn't engage. I calmly said I wasn't interested in continuing the conversation and hung up. Then I blocked the number. After that, I doubled down on no contact. I told Caleb to let me know if my parents or Karen tried reaching me through him, but otherwise I didn't want updates. He mostly respected that, though he'd occasionally slip in news. Months passed, and the longer I went without contact, the more I realized how much I'd missed out on without their constant drama. I had time and energy to focus on what mattered, my career, my friends, my peace. There were moments of doubt, times when a voice in my head asked, what if they're right? What if you're being selfish? But then I'd remember everything they'd done, and the doubt would fade. Until recently, I had no clue what was happening with Karen. Then Caleb called. Hey, thought you'd want to know. Karen filed for bankruptcy. I paused, processing it. Well, I thought, maybe now she'll learn to take responsibility. Caleb said, maybe. But we both knew that was unlikely. Karen wasn't one to learn from her mistakes. My parents kept up their smear campaign for a while, but it seemed to fizzle out. Even their most loyal allies got tired of the same old story. By the holidays, I was grateful I didn't have to spend Christmas pretending everything was fine. Instead, I spent it with my chosen family, friends who actually care about me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. I could just be myself, free from my parents' expectations and Karen's demands. Cutting them off wasn't easy. It was one of the hardest choices I've ever made. But looking back, it was the right one. Sometimes you have to walk away from toxic people, even if they're family. It's not always simple, but it's worth it. Caleb still gives me occasional updates, but I've made it clear I don't want to hear more. The last I heard, my parents were still trying to save face, and Karen was struggling to recover from bankruptcy. I wish I felt sorry for them, but I don't. They made their choices, and now they're facing the consequences. As for me, I'm not a puppet dancing to their tune anymore. I'm moving forward, surrounded by people who respect my boundaries and genuinely care. I'm focusing on my career, my hobbies, my happiness, and while I don't know what the future holds, I know one thing for sure. I'll never let anyone, family or not, drag me down again. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you're dealing with toxic people, I hope my story inspires you to stand up for yourself. You deserve better.